Hello, this is Guy Neal with Primal-Knowledge, and we're putting together an ongoing series of tools and equipment that were used by the Iceman. And those of you who aren't familiar with the Iceman, it is a Neolithic mummy that was discovered in the Italian Alps about 20 years ago. The Iceman was aged at about 5,300 years ago in Europe, which was the very late Stone Age. And one of the reasons the Iceman is important is a lot of the tools and equipment that were found with this mummy were preserved, and they were the organics that you usually lose. So it wasn't just stone and bone and ceramics that were preserved. The vegetable fibers, the wood, the organics were preserved. And one of the things that was found with the Iceman was what's called a back panner. And all that was found was the wood structure of a back panner. And what I've done is recreate what I believe the Iceman actually, his back panner looked like. And this is important. If you can look at this, we had two braces at the bottom and a curved shaped structure for the back. This back panner, one of the reasons I went ahead and tried to reproduce that first is that the back panner is the important tool that allowed the Iceman to take extended trips away from his village or social support system. And I've recreated what I think the backpack may have looked like in life. All I had to begin with was the wood structure, and these are exact dimensions of this back panner, and the tools and the equipment to use to create it were Stone Age tools. So basically this frame is what came through to the modern age, but there were a couple other things that were found with the Iceman, and one of those objects, or a pair of those objects, were two birch bark containers, and they were 20 centimeters high and 18 centimeters wide, round circular containers. So taking that information, I assumed that the Iceman didn't carry the two containers in his hand. They likely went into something on his backpack. So if we look at this backpack here, I've created something that supports basically two containers, which are bark containers of 20 centimeters high and 18 centimeters across, and they fit neatly into this bottom section of this backpack. Now I want this backpack to allow me to carry the extra equipment and tools that I need to extend my travel away from a village, because the Iceman wasn't a farmer. Normally farmers didn't do extended trips. He was probably a professional hunter who went and traded wild game back to a farming community for other goods that he may want. Since he carried two birch bark containers of those dimensions, they fit very nicely. This is the exact replica of the frame that he used, and you see these two containers fit very nicely in this bottom leather container. So I suspect that probably what the Iceman's backpack looked like was it had a box with a similar lid as this, and also what was discovered a year later on the second excavation of the Iceman, we have two struts in the back. What was found a year later, shrouded in hair and hide, was a third strut. And it was likely there is a third strut in here you can't see that allowed this hinge to work. And I'd put it in there before I read about the discovery. So I think I'm pretty close to what the Iceman wanted for the bottom of his back panner. The other thing that's interesting about this back panner is the bottom struts were strapped to the large circular frame with cord, as I've done here. This is handmade cordage, and it left impressions on the circular frame cord marks where they were tied to it. And it allows it to be flexible but still rigid. What was interesting is nowhere else on the frame was any indication of a tie. So it was likely, and this is a complete extrapolation, but I came up with a design with a nice parallel limbs here. I came up with a design where it was an adjustable backstrap that allowed the Iceman to not have to tie and retie his pack straps every time he took his backpack off. He could take the weight off his backpack, as I would show here. You put your backpack on without weight on it, and then when you put your weight on it, it slides down and adjusts to the right height. And so I designed this assuming that may have been the way he put his straps on. So I'm testing that idea. But this also allows you to come up, take the weight off of your backpack. And so I like the idea of a self-adjusting backstrap system. Back in the late Neolithic period, there was not what we have today, where we have snap clips or Velcro to allow easy adjustment. It would have literally been a tie and untie procedure to tighten your pack. This, once you set it once, it allows it to loosen and unloosen without readjusting it. And it also does something else. It fits the archaeological evidence that there wasn't any cord marks or indications of a tie on this frame other than the ones that were done for the wood struts at the bottom. So it's possible. I like it because of that. And if you look at this frame, if I've got, let's say I'm a professional hunter, I'm carrying in here a couple of things. In one of these bark basket or containers, I've got the source of my fire. That's what the Iceman was carrying. It was a tinder bundle, coal extender, and it was wrapped in leaves and kept in one of these birch bark containers. So he wanted to be able to carry fire from one campfire to the next. The other container carried a lot of cordage and leather material strap. So basically what the Iceman was carrying in this bundle was his ability to bind things to the frame and a source for fire for him, a well-kept fire. The way I designed this leather system, all the surfaces drain and flow away from the interior of this pack. So rain that hits here flows on down and makes this almost a watertight container because of the way the hair sheds water. And the leather that the Iceman would have used would have been a similar red deer hide than what I have here. So I think this is a good system. It kept him a watertight compartment at the bottom, but it also allowed him a platform if he had killed some game or had a bundle of material that he wanted to carry. He could set the weight of it on this bottom shelf and tie. Let's say he had a couple of quarters of a ibex, a couple rear hind leg quarters. He could set the weight on and tie the legs up here. And as long as he used a system where he either tied to the top or he strapped from here across, or from here across, or from here across, or from here across, his adjusted system still worked for him. So it allowed him to use this as self-adjusting system and also tie his load onto this backpack. So this is an important replication as far as how the Iceman coped with basically dealing without the conveniences that we have. We don't worry so much about carrying things because we have a pickup truck if we need to. The Iceman had to be very conscious of the weight he carried because really this was his life support while he was away from village or support system. So this is what I've come up with so far. It also allowed him, if he caught some small birds or animals, he could put them into this bottom container, had a tight lid, something to store as far as a small meal for later, add to a soup. Odds and ends that he carried a lot of equipment, but if he was collecting something, he had a quick place to put it. And if he was carrying a load, he had a place to bind that also on a system. So that allowed him to have his hands free and still carry the extra support materials that he needed. For I can imagine he had a grass cape with him. I can imagine on a warm sunny day he wasn't wearing that grass cape. It was probably bound to the back of his backpack. Same as a bundle of arrows would be tied to the side just so that it kept his hands free. So this is a valuable piece of equipment. It's like an extra support system for him. And this is what I've come up with as far as a replication of what the Iceman probably carried. Now, here at Primal-Knowledge, the use and the exploration of how the Iceman used this pack is the kind of experimental archaeology that we bring forward into classes. We want to use real solutions to prehistoric problems, and finding examples like this and actually testing them and finding how they work and adjusting and developing them. That's part of what we do here at Primal-Knowledge.